stage. So ladies and gentlemen, we have a big round of applause for our rare panellists.
Darren's the edge, come on.
Get some more seats if you need it.
Keep moving down, we'll look around that.
Test
Move down the bus.
case, 1, 2,
Right, I'm going to get out of the way. All over to you,
so
Gargette.
here we are, the Rare Revival Panel 2. Welcome back to those who are here for the first year, and welcome to the new people who weren't here last year, obviously. If you want to go one by one, introduce yourselves, because there might be some new faces. We'll go from left to right.
Sorry, very last minute. My name's Darren Murdoch. I'm the audio director at Playtronic Games.
My name's Hamish, Lockwood. I'm just a designer at Playtronic Games.
I'm Shawn. I was the senior programmer on Conker's Live and Reloaded and Bad Fur Day.
I'm Chris Marlow, programmer on Conker's Bad Fur Day, lead programmer on Live and Reloaded, and the voice of the Great Mighty Pooh.
I'm Chris Seavour. I was designer of Conker's Bad Fur Day, amongst other things.
I'm Kev Bayliss. I was at Rare for a fair amount of time, working on a lot of games, and then now I'm at Playtronic Games.
My name's David White. I write a bit of music every now and again, and that's it. There we go.
I'm Jens Restemeier. I'm from Rare. I did the Donkey Kong Country Game Boy Color. I did Diddy Kong Pilot. I worked on Perfect Dark Zero. I worked on Jet Black Refueled, and I'm now technical director of Playtronic.
There we go. As you can see, quite a panel we got here. We got about 30 minutes to ask as many questions as I can get in. So we're going to start off quickly by I want a round of applause for Rare's new release of Sea of Thieves. Anyone interested? Anyone playing it? Come on, let's show some Sea of Thieves back there.
Yes!
Almost 200 hours into my nightmare of being a pirate legend. But yeah, congratulations on Rare for the Hungry Beat trailer and the success of Sea of Thieves. To play a new Rare game in 2018, come on, like, they don't come out every day, do they? Like they did the N64 days when they were just flying out of their pockets. So yeah, I'm grabbing this one with both hands and just strangling it until all the bits come out of it. We've also got more than enough people who don't work at Rare anymore, and it's quite interesting to see now that your games are starting to come through. Obviously, Yooka-Laylee's been out for over a year now, year anniversary. Congratulations! And you've just done the Bit Summit, and it's coming out in Japan pretty soon, right?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure when exactly, but it's definitely coming along.
Yeah, and you won an award for the best digital startup as well.
Did we?
Yeah.
No, I think so. Yeah.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
I don't know. I guess
I just saw it and went, oh, that's good for them.
Yeah, I think it's probably pretty hard to start a new company as like a games company as well. I think we've done pretty well. Especially Gav and the team have done quite well. Starting a company. So yeah, not an easy thing, but yeah, it's good to have the encouragement.
So next year, Gory Detail, best digital startup. Are you excited? Yeah. No.
Let's hope so.
Going for 4 years.
I'm only joking. So you've had Parachute Stand out and Parachute Stand Retro as well. I've got the name right there. Sorry, I must have butchered it there. And you have got the Legend of Rusty Pup coming sometime soon. Soonish. Yeah, going well.
Yes.
As well as game development can be.
Well, there's only 2 of us. No, it's going alright.
Are you polishing it to the nth degree?
Further than that.
Wow.
That's why it takes so long.
I said this last year, and I'll say it this year. Every time you tweet a GIF, even though it's compressed to Mighty, it looks amazing. I'm genuinely excited for that game, and I will try my best to make sure that all my friends play it. But I've only got one friend, so yeah, sorry about that.
We appreciate your friend.
So every now and again, some of you return back to series that you've worked on. Kev, you went back to concept art on Killer Instinct Season 2, right? We spoke about this last year.
Yeah, because I took a step out of the industry for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And I hadn't used any 3D software for, 6 or 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was Chris actually that showed me the link to the KI that was being reborn. and I got in touch with Ken Lobb because we worked with him on the original game, and he said, "Would you like to do some artwork?" Because I wanted to have there's a set of the retro costumes, so everything looks as it did from the first game, but slightly more polished to it. So I got involved and did a little bit of that, and once I put my foot back in the water, I thought it's time to get back into games again. So I got involved with the guys at Playtronic.
You made a trouser snake, so well done.
That's right. Well, no, it's the trouser snake. I did actually come up with that name. I'm sure I did, but a lot of the names we can't actually mention.
You've already forgotten the craziness of game development. So how was it returning to Killer Instinct after such a long time? Was it obviously good, but was it mixed emotions as well?
It's a manic game now, isn't it? It's a lot more furious. It's a lot busier, and every time I try playing it online, and I just getting whopped every time.
It's crazy.
I need the old-fashioned slow block hit. Now it's just crazy, but it looks amazing.
Yeah, it does indeed. So then we've also had on Project Spark, we had Conker's Big Reunion. Was you anything to do with that, Chris, or have I been misled?
Yes, I did. I did do some of the voices.
Yeah, you did some of the voices. How was it returning to that role? I know, obviously, you kind of embody that main character, so to speak. If I want to use that phrase.
I did the voice. I didn't write it.
No, you didn't write it, but
which is not doing the dialogue.
Of course,
means that you've got to. It's a bit more difficult to get into the character. So.
Yeah, the whole thing about Verde is, you kind of understand that character.
Yeah, it's not just how he speaks.
It's the way how he talks to the people around him. Yeah, but again, how was it returning to that series after such a long time? Was it?
I got some money.
But that's number one, paid.
There isn't a number two.
There isn't a number two. And Project Spark is now.
I've never played it.
No, you can't now, can you? Because it's gone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which is a bit of a shame because now there's no more.
It looked great. I thought the character was.
I thought.
If you ever did a new Conqueror, that would be a good way to go in terms of art direction.
That style over Young Conqueror. Sorry.
Yeah.
I had to ask because if I don't ask, someone else will.
Yeah, that thing. Yeah.
Sorry. And then also David Wise. You returned to the Donkey Kong series of Tropical Freeze, which has just come out on Switch.
It has, yes.
Yes. Do you get? Is your microphone on?
Is that working?
There we go. We can hear you now, sir.
Yes. Switch. Tropical Freeze.
So obviously it was good returning to that series because in my head you are mostly Donkey Kong flavour.
Yeah, I guess so.
And you also got paid for the Tropical Freeze work. So therefore it was good.
It was good, absolutely.
Now, did you cash in a sweet Switch royalty check for this new version? You must have written one new tune just so you can get a royalty check.
I read about 2.5 new tunes altogether.
Yeah, nice.
I'm not sure one of them used, but certainly there's the new Funky Kong tune, and then there's some other bits that he crops up with a surf guitar and plays that every now and again.
Nice, good stuff. And again, same question to what I asked Chris and Kev, how was it returning to that after such a long time? Well, again, brilliant because you get paid, but emotionally, is it?
Yeah, it's nice to give me something to do, so that's always a bonus. It was great to return to a series that you've invested quite a lot of energy in and a lot of time, so it was nice to go back and write some new tunes for the Tropical Freeze.
Good. And with Playtronic you had Kirk Hope and yourself and other people writing music for Yooka-Laylee. But the early days of Playtronic, was it literally just someone in a pub with the word Mingy Jongo written down on a beer mat?
I have no idea. It was Gavin who started it and Jens, so Jens is probably the person to ask.
Hello. Yeah. Hello. Yeah. So I mean, obviously leaving Rare, and the past is the past, and was it literally just three of you in a pub?
Pretty much Gavin started it up. So Gavin called me because I was quite technical, as Rare as well, and quite enthusiastic to getting things, new things done and so on. So they asked me if I would want to join. Yeah, I was one of the first employees. I'm one of the directors. So
yeah. Yeah, good. And we mentioned that Yooka-Laylee is just over a year old now, and excellent. It's good to see it, grow from strength to strength. Obviously, you're working on a second game that you can't talk about because that's the way the business is.
But you could talk about it.
Are things going well at Playtronic?
Of course, yes. Yeah. So we can keep the lights on. We can't drive all Ferraris, but we can keep the lights on and develop the next game.
Okay, good. Yeah, good to know.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. So
on the end there, we got Hamish and Dan. You're quite new to the to the roster of Rare panelists, right? You're kind of outsiders, so to speak.
Yeah, kind of imposters, as it were.
How dare you? How is it coming in, following in the footsteps of all these, like, I want to use the word legends, but I mean, is that right? They've made some pretty amazing stuff on the N64. They spun that machine into, like, look at Top Gear Rally versus Diddy Kong Racing, and you kind of see what I'm talking about. Like, fair enough, like, they had the numbers, they had the people, but the people make the games, and that's what makes them so good, and that's why we're here. But how is it coming in from the outside in, trying to follow in their footsteps and make Yooka-Laylee?
So at first I think it was maybe a little bit imposing, because obviously it's been 3 years now since both of us joined the company, so maybe that's kind of worn off a bit. I think one of the things is that when you first start and you've got the names, and you've got the history, etc., especially before Yooka-Laylee ever came out, and even before it was really shown off to the public, there was this kind of sense going in. But as soon as you kind of joined, we just met everyone, and everyone's, you know, really cool. And it's very easy to get on, and the office is filled with puns and all the time, and so it kind of, it was very easy to get over that hill, and then there was a huge game to make, and just cracking on.
Yeah, it is. Well, it was quite surreal at the start, but after a while, you just realise that it's just another studio. Like, everyone just gets on and makes the games, and it's very normal, you know.
Yeah, okay, good.
It's really good.
But you didn't find it quite intimidating, you know, because the Kickstarter was such a massive success, and you must have come in after that because the studio was growing as they.
Yeah. So, like Dan said, we joined probably a year or so into it, or maybe a bit less after the Kickstarter, like 6 months. Or so.
Just after the Kickstarter, we were doing a big round of hiring immediately afterwards.
Yeah, and it was a little bit intimidating, but so like we both didn't work at Rare, so we're like one of the few that haven't worked there. So coming in, I think for me personally, I really wanted to work on 3D platformers, so I was just super keen to try that out. So yeah, I was just more excited than anything.
I have to say actually, because Chris and myself, when we joined Rare, it was the same situation, because we came onto the KI barn. You know, you're working with guys that have written Donkey Kong Country as well in the company. So when you first start, it is really intimidating, you know, but it also helps you to raise your game, because there's so much to learn from these guys originally. You know, that's how we cut our teeth, and so, you know, Concup was the first game that Chris and myself had worked on. So it's always good when you're at Rare to work with experienced people. At least half the team was experienced, you know, had done hundreds of games, some of them. So that was always good.
In fact, it was one of Kevin's models. That was my first thing that I did. You remember he was a little guy and he was in the box splits? It was one of your models that you gave to me, so I took that and I was making him bounce around. Yeah, it's very good.
I think the main thing that we needed at Playtronic, there was some young blood, because we're all getting old now, and it's good to have a fresh approach, and so we got these guys on, and Hamish really excelled in the design area, and Dan's bringing a new twist to the audio, and it's just nice to have something new. We've got to keep moving, because otherwise we'll just keep knocking out the same thing over and over again. The hair gets greyer, older. That's what happens, kids.
So while you're on the mic, Kev, you tweeted a little while ago that you're thinking about making an outside project with David Wise. Has anything happened with that? I saw you went skiing.
Oh yeah, that's what I was saying. Talked about doing some 8-bit stuff, maybe some Commodore 64 stuff.
Go on, do it.
Silly stuff like that.
We've only talked about it over a bit.
Yeah. So we may talk about something else next
time. So I'll see you this time next year, and we'll have a playable demo. Yeah?
KI on the Commodore 64 Mini, I think.
KI versus Horace goes fighting.
Yeah, Diddy Kong Racing on the.
I'm sure you're allowed to use that. Yeah, good.
But no, I mean we needed young people, and we're still hiring, and we're still taking on some new talent. We just had a great new artist join us from Amsterdam.
Yeah, the Netherlands. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, she's doing fantastic backgrounds, and so. It's looking pretty good.
Yeah, it's good to hear that Playtronic.
Not that we're working on anything new yet.
No, of course you're not. No, it's all until each free, and then it'll be everywhere, and then you can't shut up about it. But yeah, exciting times indeed. Every time, there's so many games that have come out in the last few years. I think for me, it kind of started with Yum Yum Games made Tengami maybe 5 years ago now, and it's kind of gone from there. You made music for that, Mr. Wise?
Yeah, indeed, yes.
How was that process? Was it fun? It's quite a different vibe to Donkey Kong, right?
It is. It's more of a story.
Quite a storybook.
That you play. It's a very peaceful thing, and I really wasn't sure what I was doing, and I didn't really get it until I'd finished it. And then once I'd finished it, I realised I'd have done everything quite differently.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
No, yeah, I helped those developers test a few of their, well, the whole build actually. So I was quite privy to the music beforehand, and I was definitely there. I was there, man.
So it was almost the inverse. I was going through my exploring the Japanese koto.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's a very, very beautiful game.
And and that kind of inner zen type thing.
And then most recently we've had Raging Justice come from Making Games. Not too sure if any of us have any input on that at all, but it's it's harking back to the old school again. Hopefully it does well for him, and he can push on to the second game and make some more incredible stuff. So, as a Rare fan still, and a fan of the old days, it's good to see that everyone's still working. If you want me to say that. But we're going to move on. I've got a few questions about Conquer, because how can you not talk about Conquer every single time? I'm sorry, but I was reading up on Conquer's Other Bad Day, and there was a boss fight, another poo boss fight. Am I right in saying that? Or a poo monster called the Great Cthulhu? I can't really pronounce it very well.
Yeah. It changes.
Okay.
It was going to be a Titanic.
Ah, okay.
So instead of you hitting the iceberg, you hit.
Ah, okay. And was there
You
another?
hit a giant poo. And,
Was it another singing poo by any chance, or was that too obvious?
There would have been some singing.
That's
But
good
he's
to know.
cheap, so.
Yeah, I am cheap.
Really got him.
Available for weddings and bar mitzvahs.
So, yeah. So that one.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
It just came out of. I was looking for movie parodies. So
of course, yeah. I mean,
that's what drives it. Really.
that's what made Conquer pretty much stand out from above the crowd. Was the crack on movie parodies and yeah.
Yeah, which came quite late in the game actually. It's,
But
I'd say about 6 to 8 months in before we started doing that.
oh right, wow, yeah, pretty well done for that late.
It was pretty straightforward up to that point. And I went, oh, this works. We'll do some more of this.
So how many here have you worked on Diddy Kong Racing? Just the one, right? Is it just you? And you did some music as well. Yeah, you did some music as well. Yeah. So I'm getting all confused because there's too many faces to look at. I've got a question regarding the amount of balloons that you collect in Diddy Kong Racing. Now, this is a stupid fanboy question. Why 47 of each? I know there's gold and there's platinum. Was it just the amount of levels you had?
That would have been Lee Schuneman's idea, really. I wasn't designed. I was designed, but more from a graphics point of view on that game. So I'm sure there's some reason why there's 47. I thought it was 48.
See, I looked online, yeah, and everyone's saying they got 48, but I've only not that I'm not good, but I've got 47 and I can't find the 48. See,
You're playing hard.
These rare games are full of mysteries, and I'd love to know more about them. But I'm pretty sure
you can't count.
I can't count. That's the answer. Can't count. But yeah, I'm pretty sure your memories have faded long on to even answer that question. So
I was looking at some of the old videos the other day actually online, and it's incredible how pointy everything is. But yeah, it'd be a nice one to redo.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, in terms of the N64 visuals, I noticed that Yooka-Laylee is still waiting for an N64 shader mode. Do I bring this up and annoy you lot? Because
it's coming.
It's coming. I knew that was going to be the answer. I should have asked it, really, should I?
So basically, I would be the one who worked on who would do it, and I've spent lots of time on the Switch version, and now I'm spending lots of time on the next game. But basically, once the workload from that goes a bit lower, I've got ideas how to do it. It's not going to look exactly like an N64. It's going to look like a Super N64. But yeah, hopefully people like it.
Yeah, I imagine it's a lot of hard work to change a whole game's visual style, just like that. But I had to ask because if I don't, someone else will.
Lots of people are looking forward to that.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and would that be something that I don't want to prod into the future of Playtronic, but would that be something that you'd use in future games to give us a clue about maybe the other kind of games you're going to be making?
If it works well, we're going to use it for future games.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's exciting. Thank you very much. Thanks for being so candid. So, in terms of mysteries, unlockables, your games are full of them, right? And we were there. I was there. Not we. I was there, feverishly looking at them. Do you do these things on purpose to wind us up? Right. So, Perfect Dark, the question mark box up in the grating. Do you put that up there just to wind us up? Like. Does anyone know what I'm talking about in the multiplayer stage? The Area 52 thing, is it? Area 52? There's an ammo box with a question mark grating right above it. And in Conquered Bad Fur Day and Live Reloaded, there's a grating that you can't get past with some chocolate behind it. What are you doing?
Yes, that was specifically designed to annoy you.
Just me?
Just you.
There was a gap and it didn't have anything in it, so I thought, pot of chocolate there.
I mean,
That'll piss them off.
things, you know, right?
That'll piss off the completionist, won't it?
I failed all my teenage years trying to push my way through that kind of crevice in the polygons. I could get through there, I'm sure I could. There's a bit of chocolate there for a reason. So you do it to wind us up, yeah?
Oh yeah.
These are the people that, you know,
That's not right.
No, it's not. No, it is right, thank you very much. So, I mean, going forward then, are we all feeling positive about the games industry as a whole? Like, I mean, there's so many different kinds of games that are happening now. You've got Rare with Sea of Thieves having a games as a service. I mean, you've had to pretty much change the whole company structure to deal with the people asking for certain things about Sea of Thieves.
Yeah, I mean, for Rare, Sea of Thieves is a completely different way of developing games to how we've ever done it before. We've talked about this quite a bit, where before you design the game, you develop it, you test it, you burn it onto pieces of silicon, chuck it out the door, and you never see it again. And then, you know, you might get like 10 or 15 reviews come back, a bit of word of mouth, a few magazine articles, and that's it. Until 20 years later you get to invite you to a retro panel to talk about it. You probably read quite well. But now we've never had anything like this, where you release it and it's being Twitch streamed and you're just seeing it constantly live. You get to see everybody's opinion on Twitter and Reddit and just everywhere. Everyone has an opinion on it. And even like in the last couple of years, compared to games that were released just a few years ago, it's become so broad and so easy for someone to be able to have their opinion and talk about it. And in a way, it's a double-edged sword, because it's great to have that instant feedback. You can tweak stuff, and the ability to actually, once it's out, to change it again. So you can just constantly tweak and play and rebalance and find out what works, what doesn't work. And when we test it, you could only test it internally with 100 people, and then we put it into like a little flighting ring, and it went to 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 60,000. And then we released it, and it went to 300,000 concurrent users, 1 million in the first 3 days. It was insane. So you suddenly get this massive wave of people playing the game, and everyone having an opinion on it, which you've then got to filter and work out what sort of new content you want to put in based on feedback of it, what's working, what isn't working, and try and adapt to it. But it's kind of crazy, because you can go a bit mad looking into the void of 1 million opinions all coming at you from every single angle, and usually the moaning people are the most vocal, so you do get an awful lot of that. But everyone has an opinion, and it's great to be able to get that sort of feedback on it. But it's very different to how it used to be, where it was just like this little thing where you worked on this private little game and you made this the best that you can, and you just throw it out into the world. But it's interesting watching someone on YouTube demonstrating a bug very, very clearly to you that you thought you'd fixed, and you get the entire world telling you that you didn't. And but at least we get a chance to fix it now. Yes. Unlike many bugs that we passed on games that went out, where you're going, we can't release a game with that bug in it. They go, yes you can. It's going out next week. So
yeah, I mean, that's kind of a blessing and a curse, isn't it, with modern gaming, is that games do come out with a lot of bugs in, but they can be fixed. So, you know. Yeah,
I mean, look, with, on Conquer we had all the N64 titles that, with Rare, they had to have what was called a soak test at the end. It was right, the very last little thing, and they had 24 hours. They had to be played for 24 hours with all the testers thrashing it as hard as they can. 24 hours. If it does that, you don't have to release it. On Conquer's Bad Fur Day, we went through that process, and we're all sitting there nervously waiting for the results to come back. And 23 and a half hours in, we had a 100% very easily reproduced crash, which we then had to fix. And it was literally on the very first on the hub world, the Wimmer world, you could take the beehive, and where it was dripping, all the honey would drip. There was a certain polygon where the drip fell straight through. Then you waited 2 minutes as it fell and 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 crashed the game. So we're so happy that tester found that bug. But yeah, we then patched that. We had to patch that up rather quickly and get it out. But
and then it goes for 24 hours again. So you start the clock. So it's soul destroying. But I mean, that bug, as probably nobody would ever get it. but we still insisted on fixing it, and it would cost a load to put it back through. So, but yeah, it's burned into our memories, that one.
You know, and to follow on from that, Playtronic Games received a lot of feedback with Yooka-Laylee upon release, and there was some changes made to the camera and stuff. And again, that's what you need to do nowadays with game development, is be kind of transparent and honest about what you're making and how you're making it and how you're looking to go forward with it. And you know, as from a player's point of view, I really appreciate that kind of feedback, and you know, back from the developers, the fact that you went back and fixed or improved the game. Yeah, it's just absolutely incredible nowadays. But I also see the appeal of cut and dry gaming. You know what I mean? Like back in the day, it must have been nice just to go, right, Nintendo certified that, bye, and that was it. But now it's kind of like, no, now everyone's a tester. You know what I mean? Everyone's kind of certifying your game for you online and stuff, and it must be quite daunting. I mean,
just don't listen to them.
Just don't listen to them. Turn Twitter off. It's lovely.
With
We used to bribe our testers.
with Yooka, with that camera thing, and probably we did a big patch actually a few months after. I think all that came from the Kickstarter was quite, not like rushed, but having a Kickstarter, it was a just such a big load of things that we had to put in, and we had to hit the date, and we had to add all this extra stuff because it went so well. So yeah, it was nice to have this big period of time afterwards to put the extra time in and improve all those things that we just didn't have time for. It was a big game and a small team and a small period of time to make it. So yeah.
So one thing I've really appreciated and feel a lot of sympathy for every other indie Kickstarter game out there is there is no wiggle room at all. There's no Microsoft or Warner Brothers or Ubisoft who we need an extra month just to hit that. We could put these in on, we'll just prove this a little bit here. There's literally, you have to release at that point. It's not going to go over. If we go over, we run out of money, full stop, and then everyone is out of a job. So it was really quite last minute on a lot of things, and I'm actually quite impressed, in all honesty, how good a shape it went out in, because it was really quite intense, especially with just the amount of features that were promised on the Kickstarter that I think we wish we could cut, because we could have probably made a better game with less different features to make. But we had promised, you break Kickstarter promises, everyone eats you alive. So it was it was quite amazed that we actually managed to deliver on every single one of those things and get the game out in as good a shape as it was.
How was the crunch?
Not so
a sustained period of crunch.
Sustained. I mean, no. I mean, I've worked worse, but it was still pretty intense. I think actually one big difference is because the average age of Playtronic is considerably higher than most of the industry, which is kind of always really quite young. So
that's your fault, Kev.
but it means that people have kids that they need picking up from school. It means that they've got families that they've got to get home to, that they've got responsibilities and dependents that they have to make sure are okay. So people can't work in the office 24/7.
That's why they hire young people.
Yeah, that's why they hire
burn
people
through
to do
them.
that. Yeah. Well, I've worked at other companies that were a bit younger in the past, and no one has children, so everyone's there till 2 o'clock in the morning every night, and it wasn't that bad, but it got pretty bad at times, but not crazy. It's manageable if sustained.
Now, the last 3 months on Sea of Thieves was fairly brutal as well, if it helps.
It's a different kind of crunch now, though, because everybody can work at home. Even though they've got families and whatever, you can go home and I'm 15 minutes away from work, so I can be at home or in the studio, but most people still get home on Saturday morning, they'll do an update and do whatever and fix whatever. So I think there's a lot more actually going on outside of work hours.
Yeah, I mean, we have the exact same thing, because this was the first game that we've done on a PC, which means that you can do remote desktop and not have to go onto a console, because that's the thing that came to break it. If you could always remote it to your PC at work, but if you then want a console, you couldn't see the TV, so it's a bit useless. But as soon as you have it developing on the PC, that allows that. And I know there's a lot of work-life balance issues, but in a way that was a lot more flexible. If you've got a family, you can go home, you can go and cook the tea, put the kids to bed, and then log on and do a few more hours in the evening, which is actually better. Whereas back on Conker's Fur Day, we were doing like 90-hour weeks for about a year and never saw our families, ever.
Not as good.
Not quite so good. Well, they used to get when we had the Rare Christmas party. All the wives used to come together, and they formed the Rare Wives Club. And they said, "Do you think he's having an affair? No, he's too tired. He can't be having an affair. No, they're all doing it. Either all having affairs at the same time, or they are all seriously working 90 hours a week."
I have to say, when we saw the overtime sheet at the end of Bad Fur Day, I mean, when we restarted, it took us it was just over 2.5 years, 2 years, 7 months, I think, because I checked. And I think the lowest overtime was 2,000 hours. So to put that in perspective, I think that's nearly a year's worth of work. So it was extremely hard work back then. But we had, we were a tight group. We were all pretty young. I say my son was born like a week after we finished the game.
It's all about the timing.
So yeah, and it was hard work. It was certainly different, but in some ways, it was a different way of working. It was a much more iterative, get on with it, get it done. Now everything's sort of planned out and all the rest of it. So
we did plans.
Well, yeah. I think we had about 2 meetings in about 2.5 years. So that puts it in perspective.
Chris just shouted at us and we did what he said.
Yeah. So speaking of crunch, does the audio man or audio men, do you also do crunch as well? Or is it obviously you're writing brilliant music and you're doing brilliant noises? I'm going to say noises.
Dan did.
Does it work the same? Because obviously the programmers and stuff, it's kind of easier to say, they just program until it's done. But same with audio and music and sound effects and stuff. Is it exactly the same, or is it a different kind of crunch?
You spend half the entire development period sitting next to the artists and the designers saying, when's this going to be ready? When's it going to be ready? And every time they delay, you just this impending sense of dread, because you can't do anything until they've decided what it's going to look like. Because suddenly if they decide, oh no, that's not going to be wooden bridge anymore, we're going to make it kind of chain metal, then your sounds will completely change. And any work you seem to try and get ahead of inevitably ends up in the bin. So you spend half the entire time desperately trying to poke the artists and poke the designers to try and hurry them up a bit. And then they finally get it ready about 6 months before ship, and then that 6 months is hell on earth.
So you sound really happy about it.
Yeah. Join the games industry, folks. Yeah. It's a wonderful career.
Already jaded. Good work.
I think the music's slightly different in the fact that I'll probably work 10 or 12 hours a day quite constantly.
Right.
But I don't tend to get the same crunch things because it's different. Although, it has been like that in the past where we've changed tunes right at the end, and in the last day you're desperately trying to finish a tune off. But on the whole, it's a bit more continuous.
Yeah, and imagine you've got your own studio, right? The David Wise Sound Studio, so it's kind of a bit more on your terms, so to speak. Not to say you don't work for someone sometimes.
Yeah.
Usually you can just go, nah, just walk away from it. And
well, there are just times where your brain stops, so you need to give it up at that point.
Right then, I think that's all we've got time for. I know it's crazy, half an hour for so many people to talk to. Hopefully I've hit some really good points, and it's time for some listener questions.
Yeah. Can I grab one of those? So I'll start things off. So we put out some requests on our Twitter feed through our Ask RA. No apologies for the name of this user, but his name's Twat-tastic.
Isn't that your handle, Chris?
So there's 2 questions. But so what was the most difficult boss to program in Conker's Bad Fur Day?
All of them. So I think they were all really complicated because they all grew, which was probably the hardest bit, because you put something in, and I'll let Chris tell you because he probably knows better, but I think they were all difficult.
I'm not a programmer, so I don't really know. They were all different, that was the problem. So, no, that was fairly straightforward. Boss is quite a unique kind of thing to do, because each one is obviously very, very different, and you have to start from scratch with each one. So in many ways they were all as complicated as each other, I'd say. I'm trying to think. The Pooh Boss was pretty complicated because we had to sync the music to what was going on in the gameplay. So the artists and the designer and the programmer and the audio all had to kind of match up, and it was a bit of a balance, a bit of a dancing game, and it all sort of worked pretty well. I don't know about you, Chris. You programmed. Didn't you program the bosses?
Well, Mark Betteridge did a lot of the movement control and did a lot of the bosses and that sort of stuff, and really had this own little meta language that we used that would allow simple. We were the first game that didn't just handcraft every single thing in C. It was like we'd written this like little meta language that allowed you to control all the characters in various different ways, but the bosses invariably were very specific ones. But he could work wonders with this meta language that he come up with that allowed all sorts of different things. And then we had quite a complex cutscene system, and we managed to twist and use that for all sorts of different things. Like, for example, we would stitch together parts of the gameplay. For example, if you were the boss monster where you're on the raptor and you have to like bite chunks out of his arse and things like that, you'd get the bit of gameplay of him chasing you and hitting you, having to jump. Then you get around to the back and we'd play a cutscene, which actually was the cutscene of him biting it, but we'd have sort of code that would relocate the cutscene and place it wherever it needed to be played in that part of the. So wherever you've been in the arena, it would actually play the cutscene in that sort of section. So yes, many and difficult.
And the second one, again, we'll see. But is there any truth in the rumour that you would get Conker back into your ownership so you can continue development of new Conker games?
Into what? Sorry.
Into your ownership.
Yeah.
Your clutches back on there.
Well, if Microsoft want to sell it for £1, I'm sure I'd buy it off them. It's not like they're going to do anything with it, is it? So,
yeah, exactly. But yeah, let's throw it out. Does anyone in the audience have a question for our gentleman?
Hi. One thing I've always wondered, how the hell did you get Nintendo to sign off on Conker's Bad Fur Day?
They didn't really know what it was. Okay, so the problem we had two games. We had Banjo, and we had 12 Tales. So we had to differentiate the two. And the only way that I thought of doing it was to go for a slightly more edgy route. And it wasn't actually that edgy at the start. It was more kind of just different, you know. And then we went a bit more mature, and I used to show it to Tim and Chris, and they, you know, Tim's like, yeah, get more of this in. And Chris was just like, well, it seems to work. So, and we just kept going. And then at some point you go Nintendo see it, and they go, oh yeah, we like that looks different, and it's very well crafted, so that's what really matters. And then at some point they go, okay, we need to rate this, and bam, got mature. So it was kind of, it just sort of happened. It wasn't really the plan. And to be honest, with hindsight, I probably would have not gone for such a hard rating, and just kind of toned that down a little bit, because it would have had a bigger audience, I think. Certainly from Nintendo. They couldn't even advertise in Nintendo magazine, which is a bit of a problem for a first party game. But and that kind of hit sales. So in retrospect, it probably would have been as good a game if you know, less edgy. Because I thought the gameplay itself was pretty straightforward. You know, standard rare kind of fur, really. No pun intended. But with a bit of swearing and some violence. Yeah.
But they also had, when we talk about the age rating, is that when it first came back, they had a couple of cuts that they needed to make, and I think she said, no, this is our vision, this is exactly how it needs to go, we can't possibly cut those, and they went, well, that will give it a XXX rating, and it can only be sold in sex shops.
And the problem is?
And so I went, oh, okay, we'll take them out.
No, I didn't have a problem with it.
It would have sold 5 copies.
Sorry to trouble you, but do any of you guys have an aspirin? I'm really freaking hungover over here on this couch. yeah, the context sensitive bee would do, or a glass of water, just anything. So
Alka-Seltzer.
a real question. I do have a real question. Yeah, sorry, just start the game with something. I heard, so I'm sweating running over here into this room because I've just come from the Mickey Speedway USA mini competition hanging out there. Got beaten by a kid by 6 milliseconds, can you believe it? But that was such an awesome experience. First time I wanted to play that game since forever, and it obviously feels like a progression to Diddy Kong Racing. Notice on the graphics on that really big screen, everything feels 2D. His face on the side, the car parts. I misjudged what that game would look like in play from screenshots. So I don't know. In a second, maybe just tell us a little bit about the Diddy Kong to Mickey Speedway sort of evolution. I don't think we hear much about that game. I'm certainly going to snap it up as soon as I can. And hey, as a side note, the girl who's done little models of you guys that you're in touch with, I believe.
Oh, Kirsty. Yeah. Go and check out her store. It's at the back of the thing. It's very good.
Within an hour, I think the big-breasted babe sunflower has been snapped up straight away. The poo monster might still be there, but hey, someone around here is as perverted as you lot.
The interesting thing about Mickey Speedway that always sticks in my mind is his ears. Because his ears were a real technical challenge, because Disney are really protective about Mickey Mouse's profile. It has to be a certain way. And the problem they had, I remember, because we all talked about how we're going to technically solve Mickey Mouse's ears, is that I think the top of his head has to rotate. So he's got like a cap on that rotates so that we can always keep the ears. And we had to do all this sort of, well, we didn't. We talked about it and the team did it. But the biggest challenge, I think, was getting Mickey Mouse's ears to always be in the correct profile. So that's what sticks in my mind about it.
Cool. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, and any other questions? Yeah, there's one. Oh, sorry.
So Chris at Playtronic still moans about Mickey's ears. That is not the first time I've heard this. He's explained it in great detail of exactly how difficult those were to put off.
Yes.
Epic Mickey's is exactly the same. If you watch the cutscenes, they actually do the ears completely independently, so they just swivel around all over his head to where they need to be. Hello. Who's to blame for the speeder bike level in Battletoads NES?
Oh, that would have to be. Well, yeah,
Yeah, it's my era, but I didn't have anything to do with that. I take no responsibility for that. So I think that would be Greg Mayles.
It would have been Mark Bettridge. Mark Bettridge would have written it, and he notoriously makes incredibly hard levels.
Yeah, so you have to play at half speed to do it. I was watching that the other day. But there's people that can do it.
Yeah, Mark B. That was about it. So he'd go, yeah, that's fine. We'll go. No one can play it.
Wasn't me.
Okay, maybe just time for one more. So, any questions down front?
Speaking of stripping out some of the obscenities in Conquer, when Live and Reloaded came out, obviously there was a lot more censorship in the game. Where did that decision come from? Was it from higher up or actually within the team?
There's a bit of both, I think. There was more bleeps, wasn't there? To be honest, I can't quite remember what was in and what wasn't. Shit was removed.
It's in my song, that's right.
Why wasn't shit wasn't in there? I didn't know.
We had to bleep shit.
Here's the secret: I've never played Live and Reloaded. No, I played it once. I don't know. There was a bit from Microsoft, yeah, for sure. They got kind of a bit, what have we got here? I'm not really sure. But I thought it was funnier with the bleeps, to be honest. Particularly something like the Professor. It leads you to your imagination. So I wasn't too bothered by it, and I was quite surprised by the backlash we got. To this day, I get tweets saying, "What the fuck?" But what the bleep is all these bleeps doing in this game? So yeah, I'm like, I wasn't particularly bothered by it, but people did seem to have a real problem, and still do. And I think it's fairly true, to be honest.
Arguments about the difference between the two. There are more arguments to come on and tell the right.
Right. So, I mean, if there was a side-by-side comparison, I imagine it was probably quite marginal. You could unlock the swearing in the multiplayer, and there was some really bad shit in that, if I remember right. That was... Yeah, anyway. So it was kind of a bit hypocritical because it was worse in some places and senses in the others, which doesn't make any sense. That really wasn't me, it was just kind of how it fell out. So, sorry.
Yeah, we were talking last week about the difference. Someone asked the question, what was the definitive version? The N64 or Live and Reloaded? Which was the definitive version? We always had to say, well, there's no debate, it's the N64 version, but we did so much work on the Live and Reloaded ones of smoothing out difficulties, sorting out problems with the camera, and obviously the graphics was so much better. It was like incredible. You look back at it now, it still holds up today, the Live and Reloaded graphics. Now in HD, Xbox One, you can get it. And so you get the 4K version now, and it holds up extremely well. And obviously, we wanted to make the live section of it, the live part of it, because it was originally going to be called Live and Uncut, but then we discovered that.
Cut loads of stuff.
well, basically, we discovered that if we actually added anything, we would open ourselves up to litigation, because basically, when we did the N64 version, we didn't ask any permission at all, and then we got it on.
Let's have a big argument with Microsoft about that. They were going to stick with Uncut, and I had to say, you realise that we've got a load of stuff. No, it's fine.
Yeah, I think because we were going to add little bits and maybe add a little, something you talked about adding a little level in things, and they went. Unfortunately, if you add anything, like say you say like the Matrix level, we'd added another Matrix section. They go, well, now Microsoft's a big company and people like suing us, and we will definitely be sued if you add something new. Currently, we have prior art, as in if it's exactly the same, they can't possibly sue us. So, but.
We were going to have an extended, so the death sequence was quite short. We were going to have a big extended sequence there, and that was where the sort of Harry Potter stuff was going to come in. And they just said, no. No, JK is a little bit litigious when it comes to her precious little boy. So we had to, we just went, oh, fuck it, we're not doing it. We just said, we're not going to do anything then.
Right, now that the swear word's out there, the potty mouth has been loose, we are going to wrap this up now. Round of applause for these.
There were some things that we all didn't know that we've now learnt, and I'm so happy to be able to put down the biggest Rare fanboy in the world up in front and to be able to talk to you guys, so many thanks. Right, everyone, we have Mr. Biffo and Ian Lee coming up in around about 10 minutes, but please feel free to stay there. I'm sure the guys will be around for the rest of most of the day as well, and hope you enjoyed the rest of the time at the Royal. Thank you.